Before his death in 1991, Freddie Mercury left behind far more than unforgettable music and legendary performances. He left behind questions, silence, and secrets that would continue to echo long after his voice was gone. To the world, Freddie Mercury was a fearless performer, a larger-than-life frontman who ruled stadiums and changed rock music forever. But behind the glitter, the bold costumes and the powerful vocals, there was a deeply private man who carefully guarded his inner life. For decades, fans believed they knew Freddie Mercury. They knew his songs, his stage presence, and his dramatic flair. Yet the truth is that much of who he truly was remained hidden until the very end of his life. In his final years, as illness slowly weakened his body, Freddie began making quiet decisions about what he would reveal and what he would take with him to the grave. These decisions were not about fame or legacy, but about protection, love, and control over his own story. Freddie Mercury lived in an era when privacy for celebrities was rare and cruelty from the press was common. Rumors followed him everywhere, especially about his health and personal relationships. Rather than feed the gossip, Freddie chose silence. He believed that his music should speak for him, not tabloids or headlines. This silence only fueled curiosity, turning his life into a puzzle that fans and journalists tried to solve for years. After his death, many assumed that all secrets had died with him. However, time has shown that this was not entirely true. New biographies, personal letters, and private accounts from those closest to him have slowly revealed pieces of a much more complex man. These revelations do not diminish his greatness. Instead, they make him more human, more relatable, and even more extraordinary. At the center of these revelations is the idea that Freddie Mercury may have revealed a truth about Queen and his own life shortly before his death, a truth that reshapes how fans understand both the band and the man who led it. This truth was not about chart success, record sales, or creative disagreements. It was about responsibility, love, and the parts of himself he kept hidden while standing in the spotlight. Freddie knew that Queen was more than a band. It was a shared identity, a brotherhood built on trust. Protecting that bond mattered deeply to him. Even as his health declined, he continued to record music, pushing himself far beyond his physical limits. He wanted Queen to survive him. He wanted the music to live on without being overshadowed by scandal or pity. In doing so, he made choices that would later raise questions and spark debate. What did Freddie Mercury know that the world did not? And why did he choose to reveal certain truths only at the very end? To understand why Freddie Mercury guarded his secrets so fiercely, it is important to understand where he came from. Freddie Mercury was born Farrokh Bulsara on September 5, 1946, in Zanzibar, then a British protectorate off the coast of East Africa. His family belonged to the Parsi community and practiced Zoroastrianism, a religion with deep traditions and strict moral expectations. From a young age, Freddie lived between cultures. His father worked for the British Colonial Office, which meant the family moved often and lived under constant pressure to adapt. This early experience of never fully belonging would follow Freddie throughout his life. It shaped his identity and taught him how to hide parts of himself in order to survive. As a child, Freddie was shy and sensitive. He loved music and art, but struggled with confidence. When he was sent to a British-style boarding school in India, the separation from his family deeply affected him. Music became his refuge. At school, he learned piano and began to explore his creative talents. Still, he remained an outsider, never quite fitting in. When political unrest forced his family to flee Zanzibar in the 1960s, they resettled in England. The move was traumatic. London felt cold and unwelcoming compared to the vibrant world he had known. Freddie faced racism, loneliness, and confusion about his identity. These struggles pushed him inward, encouraging secrecy and emotional distance. Yet, England also offered something Zanzibar and India could not: opportunity. The music scene in London was exploding. Art schools became breeding grounds for future stars, and Freddie saw a path forward. He enrolled in art college, studying design while quietly dreaming of something bigger. Music began to consume him. He admired performers who were bold, theatrical, and unapologetic. Slowly, he started building a persona that the world would come to know as Freddie Mercury. This persona was confident, flamboyant, and fearless. Everything Farrokh Bulsara had once felt he could not be. But the persona was also armor. It allowed him to control what people saw and what they did not. When Freddie joined Brian May and Roger Taylor and helped transform their band Smile into Queen, he did more than change the name. He reshaped the band's identity. Queen would be dramatic, daring, and different. Freddie understood branding long before it became a common concept in music. He knew that mystery created power. The less people knew, the more they imagined. This philosophy guided his entire career. Even as Queen rose to global fame, Freddie remained selective about what he shared. His relationships, his fears, and his private struggles stayed hidden behind the music. This careful separation between public and private life would later influence how he handled illness, love, and the truth he would eventually reveal before his death. Queen's rise to fame was rapid and intense, but success came with a cost. As the band filled stadiums and topped charts, the pressure on Freddie Mercury increased. He was not just a singer. He was the face of Queen. Every move he made was watched, analyzed, and criticized. In public, Freddie appeared fearless, commanding audiences with ease. In private, however, he struggled with isolation. Fame magnified his loneliness. He surrounded himself with people, parties, and noise, yet often felt emotionally alone. This contrast between public confidence and private vulnerability became one of the defining tensions of his life. Despite the pressure, Freddie remained deeply loyal to Queen. He saw the band as family. Even when creative disagreements arose, he worked to keep the group together. This loyalty became especially important during the 1980s, when Queen faced backlash in the United States and criticism from fans and media. Freddie took these attacks personally. He felt responsible not only for himself, but for protecting the band's reputation. This sense of responsibility would later influence how he handled the most difficult period of his life, his illness. When Freddie Mercury began experiencing symptoms of what would later be diagnosed as AIDS, fear and uncertainty surrounded the disease. In the early 1980s, AIDS was poorly understood and heavily stigmatized. The media often treated it with cruelty and ignorance. Freddie saw how other public figures were torn apart by speculation and judgment. He made a conscious decision to keep his condition private. This was not an act of denial, but one of control. He wanted to continue working. He wanted Queen to be judged on their music, not his health. Most of all, he wanted to protect the people he loved from pain and public scrutiny. As his health declined, Freddie pushed himself harder. He recorded music whenever he had the strength, often refusing to rest. His bandmates later recalled his determination and bravery in the studio. He knew his time was limited. Rather than retreat, he focused on leaving something lasting behind. During this period, Freddie began settling his personal affairs quietly. He made arrangements, wrote private journals, and shared truths only with those he trusted most. These actions suggest that Freddie was preparing not just for death, but for how he would be remembered. The truth Freddie Mercury revealed before his death was not shouted from a stage or announced in an interview. It was revealed in whispers, letters, and private moments. It was about the life he lived beyond the spotlight and the responsibilities he carried in silence. For years, fans believed Freddie's greatest secret was his illness. But recent claims suggest there may have been another truth, one that connects directly to his understanding of love, legacy, and Queen itself. This truth, controversial and deeply personal, would challenge everything people thought they knew about Freddie Mercury. And it would only come to light long after he was gone as the 1980s moved forward. Queen's journey became more complicated, and so did Freddie Mercury's inner world. While the band remained successful, cracks began to appear between public praise and private struggle. One of the most difficult periods came after the release of the album Hot Space. The album experimented heavily with disco and funk sounds, which confused and angered many longtime fans, especially in the United States. Critics were harsh, and Queen's popularity in America suffered greatly. For Freddie, this rejection was painful. He had always believed in pushing boundaries, but this time the backlash felt personal. In 1982, Queen played what would become their final full tour in the United States. Though none of them knew it at the time, what was meant to be another chapter in their success instead marked the beginning of a quiet separation from the American market. Around this time, Freddie began feeling increasingly isolated. The joy he once found in performing was still there, but it was mixed with exhaustion and disappointment. The band took a break, hoping distance would bring clarity. When they returned with renewed energy, they released the works, which included the now famous song, I Want to Break Free. The music video featured the band dressed in drag as a parody of a popular British soap opera. In the UK, fans understood the joke and embraced it, but in the United States, the reaction was very different. MTV refused to play the video, uncomfortable with its message and imagery. For Freddie, this rejection cut deeply. It was not just about music anymore. It felt like a rejection of who he was. Despite these struggles, Queen experienced one of the greatest moments in rock history in 1985 at Live Aid. Freddie Mercury walked onto the stage at Wembley Stadium and delivered a performance that would later be called one of the greatest live performances of all time. For 20 minutes, he owned the world. Millions watched as he controlled the crowd with a simple clap of his hands and a powerful voice that showed no sign of weakness. That moment reminded everyone, including Freddie himself, of who he was. Yet even at this peak, there was an underlying sadness. Fame had given him everything, yet it had taken much from him as well. Behind the scenes, Freddie's social life remained active, sometimes wild and often misunderstood. Stories from this era paint a picture of laughter, excess, and deep friendships. One of the most famous stories involves Princess Diana, who reportedly spent an evening disguised in drag with Freddie Mercury and his friends at a London gay bar. The story captured Freddie's playful spirit and his ability to make even royalty feel like equals. But beneath the fun, Freddie was beginning to crave something different. The constant attention, the parties, and the noise were losing their appeal. He was searching for peace, though he did not yet know how to find it. As Freddie Mercury moved into the later half of the 1980s, a noticeable shift occurred in his behavior. Friends began to see a quieter, more reflective side of him. He spent time in Munich, Germany, hoping to escape the pressures of London and the expectations that came with his fame. While Munich still offered parties and creative freedom, it also became a place where Freddie faced emotional pain. During this time, he fell deeply in love with a man named Winnie Kirchberger. Their relationship was intense and meaningful, enough that Freddie wore a silver wedding band as a symbol of commitment. When the relationship ended, it left Freddie heartbroken. Those close to him noticed that something had changed. The restless energy that once defined him seemed to fade. Despite heartbreak, Freddie was never alone. One of the most important people in his life remained Mary Austin. Though their romantic relationship had ended years earlier, their bond never broke. Mary understood Freddie in a way few others could. He trusted her completely, confiding in her about his fears and hopes. He once famously said that she was his common-law wife and that no one would ever replace her. This trust would later play a crucial role in how Freddie chose to handle his final years and his most closely guarded secrets. Another major turning point came when Freddie met Jim Hutton. Their relationship began slowly, but when it took root, it brought stability into Freddie's life. Jim was different from those Freddie had known before. He was not impressed by fame and refused to be ignored or mistreated. When Jim demanded honesty and commitment, Freddie surprised many by choosing love over chaos. For the first time in years, Freddie experienced something close to a normal domestic life. They shared a home, routines, and quiet moments away from the spotlight. Yet even this happiness existed alongside looming danger. By this time, Freddie was already experiencing symptoms of serious illness. In the early years of the AIDS crisis, fear ruled everything. Information was limited, and misinformation was widespread. The disease was often labeled cruelly, and those affected were treated as outcasts. Freddie watched friends grow ill and die. He saw how the press invaded their lives. When he finally received his diagnosis, it confirmed his worst fears. Freddie chose secrecy not out of shame, but out of self-protection. He wanted to live, create, and love without becoming a headline. As his health declined, Freddie continued working relentlessly. Recording sessions became shorter, but more intense. His voice, though weaker, carried more emotion than ever. Songs from albums like The Miracle and Innuendo reflected his awareness of time running out. Lyrics took on deeper meaning, often speaking of endurance, struggle, and defiance. To those paying close attention, Freddie was already saying goodbye, not with tears, but with music by the late 1980s and early 1990s. Freddie Mercury's condition had become impossible to hide from those closest to him. He grew thinner, weaker, and increasingly confined to his home. Yet his spirit remained remarkably strong. He refused to be seen as a victim. To the outside world, he offered smiles and humor, dismissing rumors about his health. Privately, he was preparing for the end. He settled personal matters carefully, making decisions that reflected deep thought and love for those around him. Among these decisions was how and when to tell the world the truth. The media, however, showed no patience or respect. Photographers camped outside his home, hoping to capture a final image of the once powerful star in decline. Tabloids printed cruel headlines and false stories, treating his suffering as entertainment. Freddie was deeply hurt by this treatment, but he never responded publicly. He believed silence was his last form of control. His bandmates stood by him, shielding him whenever possible. Even they did not fully understand how serious his condition had become until very late in 1990. Freddie made his final public appearance at the Brit Awards. Queen was honored for their contribution to British music. Fans expected Freddie to speak, but when he stepped forward, he only managed a brief thank you before leaving the stage. That quiet goodbye spoke louder than any speech. After that night, Freddie disappeared from public view entirely. Inside his home, surrounded by trusted loved ones, he continued to fight and reflect. He recorded final vocals when he could, sometimes singing while barely able to stand. His determination amazed everyone who witnessed it. Then, on November 23, 1991, Freddie Mercury finally broke his silence. In a carefully written statement, he confirmed that he was HIV positive and had AIDS. He explained that he had kept his illness private to protect those close to him. He urged the public to support efforts to fight the disease and asked for respect. Less than 24 hours later, Freddie Mercury died at the age of 45. The news shocked the world. Though many suspected the truth, its sudden confirmation followed by his death was overwhelming. In the days that followed, grief spread across the globe. Fans gathered outside his home, leaving flowers, letters, and candles. Queen lost more than a singer. They lost their heart. But as the world mourned, questions remained. What else had Freddie kept hidden? What truths had he shared only in private? In the years after his death, journals, letters, and testimonies began to surface. They suggested that Freddie had revealed something deeply personal before he died, something that went beyond illness and fame. This revelation would later challenge fans' understanding of his life, his choices, and even the story of Queen itself. After Freddie Mercury's death, the world slowly began to piece together the reality of his final years. Those who had been closest to him spoke of a man who accepted his fate with remarkable calm. Unlike the dramatic figure fans saw on stage, Freddie faced death quietly, with dignity and control. One of the most consistent themes and accounts from his inner circle is how carefully he protected Queen even as his own life was falling apart. He did not want his illness to define the band's future or overshadow the music they were still creating. For Freddie, Queen was not just a band, it was a shared legacy. He believed that if the truth about his health became public too soon, it would distract from the work and possibly end the band before its time. During the recording of Innuendo, Freddie's physical condition had worsened significantly. Walking was difficult and pain was constant, yet he refused to stop. He demanded more songs, more sessions, and more chances to leave something meaningful behind. One of the most powerful examples of this determination was a recording of the show Must Go On. The song's lyrics speak of struggle, courage, and refusal to surrender. Brian May later revealed that he worried Freddie was too weak to sing it. Freddie reportedly responded with determination, took a drink of vodka, and delivered a vocal performance that remains one of the most emotional in rock history. In that moment, Freddie was not hiding. He was telling the truth through music. Behind closed doors, Freddie began organizing his personal life. He spoke privately with those he trusted most, sharing thoughts he had never expressed publicly. He made it clear that he wanted no public funeral and no spectacle after his death. Privacy, even in death, mattered to him deeply. He also ensured that Queen would continue without him, encouraging the band to carry on in whatever way felt right to them. This was part of the truth Freddie revealed before his death. That Queen was stronger than any one person, even him, though he was its heart. He believed the band's spirit belonged to all of them as time passed. It became clear that Freddie had also left behind written records of his thoughts. Journals, letters, and private notes were shared selectively with people he trusted. These writings reflected a man at peace with his choices, even the painful ones. He expressed love, regret, gratitude, and acceptance. He did not portray himself as a victim. Instead, he focused on the beauty he had experienced and the connections he had made. This inner honesty stands in sharp contrast to the wild image often associated with him. It revealed a man who understood the cost of fame and accepted it fully in the years following Freddie Mercury's death. Fans believed that his story, though tragic, was complete. His illness, his music, and his legacy seemed fully understood. However, decades later, a new claim emerged that reopened old conversations and introduced a shocking new layer to his life. According to a recent biography by journalist Leslie N. Jones, Freddie Mercury may have revealed an extraordinary personal truth shortly before his death: the existence of a secret daughter. This claim, controversial and deeply emotional, has divided fans and those who knew him. The biography, titled Love, Freddie, presents a handwritten letter from a woman identified only as B. In the letter, she claims that she is Freddie Mercury's biological daughter, conceived during an affair in 1976 with the wife of one of his close friends. At the time, Queen was at the height of its fame, and Freddie's life was dominated by tours, recording sessions, and public appearances. According to the book, this child was raised by her mother and stepfather, while Freddie remained involved in her life privately. The claim suggests that Freddie visited her often, spoke to her regularly, and shared a loving bond with her throughout his life. What makes this claim particularly striking is the idea that Freddie entrusted this secret to only a handful of people. According to the author, those who knew included Mary Austin, Freddie's parents, and his sister. The secrecy was absolute. Even staff members who worked closely with Freddie reportedly had no knowledge of the child's existence. The book claims that Freddie arranged financial security for his daughter through private means, separate from his will, and that she never sought fame or public attention. The woman identified as B is now said to be in her late 40s, living a quiet life in Europe with her own family. She is described as a medical professional who values privacy as much as Freddie did. In her letter, she portrays Freddie as a devoted and caring father who accepted the unusual circumstances of her birth with love and responsibility. She writes that Freddie was deeply present in her life.